right, welcome to my book club. I'm Dylan, here with my sworn vassal. Yes, he is vain, difficult, terrible, petulant, horrible, marvelous most rarely, but born with that single incredible redeeming feature, which we in the trade refer to as the jade root, turtlehead, streaming shaft, male thruster, or simply piece of meat. Keith, what's up, buddy?
I don't even know what to say after that intro. So sorry, but I don't understand.
Oh, wakarimasen? Oh, stock up my learning Japanese through this and also bothering the wife so much by just saying wakarimasen, Honto, all the time. But here at the Buddy Book Club, we're breaking down some bestsellers, and this week we'll be discussing Shōgun books 2 and 3 by James Clavell. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out to us in any past episodes, you visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter or Instagram, TikTok, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Please download, subscribe. Keith, last time we talked part 1, or book 1 of Shōgun, which follows our boy, Anjin-san, from Anjiro to Osaka. We stop pretty much there. You know, we talked about kind of what's going on in Europe at the time, what happened in Japan in the last 30 years. So we did more of a zoom out than, you know, a zoom into the actual story. And we kind of talked about like how those two things fit together, you know, pretty much just setting the scene for this epic because there's so much going on. We hadn't even yet met Mariko or Toranaga. On this part of our quest, we're going to bonsai into parts 2 and 3. We get to see Osaka, meet some new friends and frenemies. Most importantly, witness Blackthorn's transformation from barbarian pirate to honored Hatamoto. Keith, stock up. What do you got?
I'm going to start things off positive. Stock up saying karma.
Oh, it's on my list.
It took me a while to really understand what karma meant in this. They reference it all the time. And there's like, well, that's karma. That's karma. Oh, karma. That's his karma. It's her karma.
You got to say that's karma, nay. You have to say the nay part.
Okay, I apologize, nay. But I realized after the earthquake and they almost die, and they're like, all of these bad things happen to us. And they're just like, that's karma, nay. That clicked for me. It finally clicked what it meant. It just means it's all mental. That's how I say all the time. That's all it is. It's like something bad happens. You're like, yeah, it's all mental. And it's like you're going through a difficult time. You're going through a good time. It's all mental. It's just a game. Let it happen. All those different sayings, it's all wrapped into one. I love it.
You can't let it affect your wa. It's all about wa, the harmony. In general, it's one of my stock ups, as well as like religion, which I'll get into, but probably more just like Buddhism. I find that like as I'm reading this book, I'm like, maybe the Buddhists figured it out. Why did we have to create all these new religions afterwards? Because in terms of karma, and whether you believe in karma or not, like, okay, you have this predetermined destiny, that kind of thing. But it's nice for the little moments when, like you were saying, bad things or good things happen to you. It's like, okay, let's not get too up and down about it. It's karma. Hey, we'll move on. And then, especially in a place like Japan, because I often think, we've said this before on the podcast, but we both grew up Christian, Roman Catholic, or at least, I don't know, Irish Catholic for you. I don't know how that works. But
it's the same. They're not different.
But I could understand it in like 1600s Japan, thinking that you were part of this divine community, like the land of the gods, because we're talking earthquakes just happen. Like, how do you explain that? You don't. All of a sudden, a whole town gets swallowed up. There's no way to explain it besides being like, oh, karma, nay. Or typhoons and tsunamis, like all this stuff is happening to this island nation. I can see how our ancestors, Native Americans and such, like thought that all of these powers were due to gods.
Well, the fact that they're not just sacrificing virgins left and right is a merit to them. We've seen eclipse back in North America, and we're murdering 50 people because of that. They're like getting like every other day is an earthquake, and they're like, karma, it's fine. So they're actually kind of level-headed.
I know, but with all this stuff, it just makes me think like, oh, I could totally believe in a higher power and something was going on. It also probably just keeps you sane with all this crazy stuff going on.
Yeah.
Specifically for Japan, I mean, they were talking about how the Mongols came over, which is true. These Mongols came over with like 1,000 ships, which must have been a wild sight to see. And then a kamikaze, divine wind, comes in and destroys all of their ships. I'd be like, oh, we are blessed. Like, I was about to be murdered. Sure. And now I'm not. We are the land of the gods. Yeah, I'm into Buddhism in general, I think. I actually did start meditating a little bit, not because of this. But yeah, just, I'm trying to get it 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. But just listening to them say, look and watch the stone grow, stuff like that. It's like, oh, bring some harmony into your life. And I just love the karma vibes. I've also been saying that too. And once again, the wife gets upset because she'll be like, I got stuck in traffic today. And I go, karma, ne? She's like, what are you fucking saying? She's like, I'm more angry now. And I'm like, sorry, you're ruining my wah. And then she tries to murder me. So that's how we go. My first stock up is immersing yourself in another culture. So without doing this, Blackthorn, he would most likely be dead. His head would have been chopped off. Or if not, he surely wouldn't be Hatimoto. They talk about also in this Buddhism thing, or like the 8 folds, or just like compartmentalizing stuff in your life. He totally puts his past life in a different compartment, especially after his seppuku attempt, which was awesome, by the way. So he kind of puts that stuff aside and just like totally embraces the Japanese culture, whether it be like the cleanliness, respect, the ceremony of it all, just the general idea that life and death are the same thing. Karma is karma. You might as well enjoy the moment and not worry about too much about what comes. And that's a lot of what happens, I feel like, in books 2 and 3. It's not a ton of action. I mean, it's almost zero, but there's a lot of relationship building and also just like learning about Japanese culture and seeing his journey through this as someone who's completely a fish out of water. The kimono's starting to fit a little nicer, that kind of thing.
Well, can we talk about the seppuku for a bit here? Because I feel like he went 0 to 100 real quick there. For a guy that's, Christian and says like, oh, you can't commit suicide, you can't do all this stuff. He just starts saying like, konnichiwa, and then like 5 minutes later, he's like, fuck it, I'll take my own life. I'm like, whoa, wait, what?
It's like, I can't live with the shame. It's like all of a sudden he can't live with the shame? What?
Kind of reminded me of like Neo seeing the Matrix. After he did that, he just started like seeing things differently. Yeah. And I was like, that's actually pretty sick.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand, how do you block a sword that you're about to stick into your heart?
He just straight up grabbed the blade like a psychopath, like Omi.
Oh, with his hand?
Yeah, like straight up grabbed the blade with his hands. But I think Blackthorn was kind of doing like, to thrust, you have to kind of like pull out to like thrust in, to kind of get that momentum. So I think Omi was just waiting for that moment, and he just grabbed the actual blade itself, because they said like his hands were bleeding all over the place and stuff like that. I was more wondering how he still had fingers, because that blade's super sharp. A grown man is trying to push that into his chest as hard as he can. Like, you're slicing yourself bad.
He's like double the size of everyone there, right?
Yeah, I don't know about double, but yeah, we'll say 1.2x.
Well, in certain places, wink, wink.
Oh, absolutely, we'll get there. Yeah, it was a wild scene. And I think it was kind of funny to me, and like that was more of a lingering question, was he cares so much about these peasants, and they're like, why do you care about these peasants? Why do you care about their lives? And Blackthorn's like, oh, thou shalt not kill. But wasn't he just in South America murdering people and taking villages and shit? So what's the difference? But, well, let me finish this with immersing yourself in another culture, because it's very important today, considering you're about to embark on an epic adventure of your own, and I thought I'd get you started on the right track, okay? So Australians, in case you didn't know, they speak English.
I'm going to Australia, by the way, just heads up.
No, I know that. No.
No, for the people that don't know, you're just going to be like, so.
Yeah, so Australians, they speak English, although they have a very colorful vocabulary, okay? I think you're going to like this part. They tend to value sincerity. This is from the internet, like some Australian hospitality thing. So they tend to value sincerity, humor, informality, whilst loathing pretentiousness. And you're going to really like this part. There's often an element of humor, often self-deprecating in their speech. So you don't need to do your Blackthorn transformation. This is you.
I'm already in here.
You're already Australian. They often use colorful language that would be unthinkable in other countries. So if an Australian calls you a cunt, don't take offense. That means they think you're a good bloke. That's all you need to know.
I'll be dropping that day one. Right off the airplane, I'm like, oh, good day, mate, you cunts.
Yeah, they'd be like, let's go grab a Foster's and have a Barbie. It'd be great. What else did you have for stock up?
Stock up being insane and hypocritical. We don't talk about themes in this pod ever, really. But this is a major theme of the book, right? These two factors.
Being insane and hypocritical?
Yeah, both of those. So let me start with death overall. The earthquake hit. Right before that, Mariko is talking to Blackthorn about how these things like hit the island all the time. And she's like, and that's why as Japanese people, we savored life so much and we just live it up to the fullest. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But then I'm like, wait a second, what? You guys like aren't about that at all. Like every single paragraph, one guy's like, I'll kill myself right now. I don't care about shit. I'm ready to die. I'm like,
once again, like we're hearing a story from pretty much the royal class, which is the thing about history is like, unfortunately as it is, the people that write history are usually men and they're usually wealthy. It's a really bad way of looking at things. So I think that in these rich people's mind, they're like, we live life every day. We enjoy it because they're doing flower arranging and they're meditating and they're going swimming when they want to and hawking. They're doing lots of hawking. While the peasants are legitimately waiting for you to shit in a bucket so they can mix it with water and put it in a rice patty. Like, I don't think that guy's living life to his fullest.
Okay, that I guess makes a little bit more. I mean, but still, every single second, there's someone being like, I'll kill myself right now.
100%.
And gladly do it. I will happily do it.
I do want to know how you felt about the brief explanation that people just relieve themselves whenever they want, however they want, wherever they want.
Who's writing that history down? They're talking about like just farting and pissing and all this stuff. Like they're getting into details. I'm like, is this written in some history book somewhere that he's pulling this from, or does like James Clavell just have like a funny sense of humor?
No, supposedly he did. Obviously he did extensive research. That goes without question. But this is people have said in terms of like Japanese historians.
Like this is a thing.
Oh yeah, that still happens. Yeah. That still happens in Japan.
Fair enough,
yeah.
And that's like the sumo wrestling 1, sushi contest 2, and then farting contest 3. Is that like the hierarchy?
And I could be totally making this up, but I'm pretty sure I read an article about like a town that still has like a farting competition or whatever in Japan. But I mean, just the idea of like Lord Toranaga in the middle of a walkway, just like chatting with someone and be like, you know what, I got to take a dump. And squatting down, pooping, everyone just politely looks away while he poops. And then a peasant comes up, finds it, and scoops it up like you would your dog's poop, but then mixes it with water and puts it in his rice patty. It was hilarious, and I was a little bit jealous, honestly. I was like, we've talked about how, in a corporate culture, if you're in the bathroom and someone else is there, it's like, well, I'm waiting now.
I'm going to push back on that. I think my zen and my karma when I open up my third eye, my nirvana is the 5 minutes of taking an RG in the bathroom, kid. So don't you dare take that away from me. I need that.
5 minutes.
I thrive on that. 5 minutes of in that zen. The other 15 minutes, I'm trying to push it out. Come on.
All right, you can continue your insanity, because I think you're delving into your insanity.
And then they talk about how Japanese are so well trained and like emotion wise, they're like so superior. Someone like slurps like their ramen or their sake wrong, and they're like, "What a great offense! I'm gonna take this dude's head off." There's so many instances where like someone says a slight offense, and they're like, "I need to protect this dude's valor. I'm gonna fucking stab him or kill him." They just jump to these like extremes so quickly. Yet they're like, "Oh, we don't have emotions. We hold everything back." It's like, huh? Like I don't. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. You're doing the most insane things over like the smallest details.
Yeah, but maybe, kind of like Father Domingo said when we met him in jail, when Blackthorn was in the Osaka jail, it's that the Japanese have one punishment for everything, and it's death. Like, sometimes randomly they'll decide, no, we're going to crucify them. But 99.9% of the time, it's, okay, you're going to die. So it kind of simplifies things a bit. So it's like, instead of being like, oh, what'll happen if I offend this person? You're just like, oh, I'll die. Like, that's it,
That's fair. But I would think that if someone were like, hey, I don't have any emotions, then things don't get under your skin. Things don't make you upset.
Yeah, but unlike Australia, where like face doesn't matter, face matters so much here in terms of like saving face and making sure you're not insulting another person outwardly. And that's why I love this book for some reason, is because they have all these subtle jabs, like when they're talking about Ishido or his messenger that came that they ended up killing, like Jojin or whatever his name was. They are like, oh, I can't believe like we wouldn't allow peasants like that or whatever the case is, knowing he's a peasant, but it still passes by as like an insult, but it's not an insult. So I love that like intricacy of the language, but I do agree. I
see
with
like
you.
The insults there, but they're pretty emo. They're like, "How dare you say that about my vassal?" And then just like go off the hinge off that. Them always being like, "We're so superior" in terms of like hiding. It's like, no, you're not. You're like super emo about everything. Maybe you're not showing it in your face, but you're still about to go to war over the smallest.
Yeah,
thing.
Well, and this was in one of my loves, so I'm gonna burn it right now. But with this section of the book is like the ever increasing scope. We're learning so much more about who the power players are, how they're maneuvering, but also the continued learning about like Japanese culture of the time. Because I totally agree with you. It seems like there are so many conflicting things, like killing in honor, but then also you can like terribly kill people sometimes. Like the guy I was talking about before, Ishido's messenger, Josin, who they just brutally murdered him and all of his men, including him, who they like stabbed and then like let him crawl and then like stabbed again and then like cut his belly and then like let him continue to die. It's like, whoa, like that's fucked up. And women in this society, they have status and power. It's not outward power, but they have power. At this time, if you could be in any culture, being a rich woman in this society would be probably up there compared to other places. So at the same time, they have to like dote on the men and run the household. They eat before or after the men eat because they have to have all of their attention on the men. It's just like there's so many juxtapositions in the culture that it's fascinating, yet it obviously works because I would probably rather be in this culture, even though I could die immediately, than going back to what Blackthorn, when he was reminiscing about home with shit everywhere and like fleas and dogs sleeping on your face. Like, I mean, my dog does that sometimes, but you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, oh, this culture has this order works.
I think that is what the book's about, is just like, it's really just about culture and insanity and hypocrisy. But anyways, a couple more real quick. I know I've been going long here. Oh, them getting disgusted over meat. Blackthorn likes meat other than fish.
Yeah, I want that pheasant.
If I went to a butcher shop, I would be disgusted too. I'd probably be throwing up. It'd be shocking to me. But you just mentioned, oh, what's going on in the square? Like, oh yeah, seppuku out there. We just watched his guts fall out. I saw some seafood come through his stomach and fall on the ground. Yeah, typical Tuesday, not a big deal. You know, how's everything going with you? Like that's their Tuesday afternoon for them.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're like, wait, a pheasant's there? Why would you be disgusted by that? I can see them being disgusted by someone like eating it because to us it'd be like eating eel or something. It'd be like, oh, I don't want to watch someone do that. Like that's gross because I'm not used to it. I get that, but them being like, how could you even kill this animal and put it something? It's like, you guys see human bodies and entrails everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal either.
I couldn't agree with you more. When they're gutting the pheasant, or when Blackthorn's showing them and he's gutting the pheasant and everyone's like, oh, bleh. It's like, what? There's literally men screaming and dying in the streets and like getting gutted. Yeah. I've also had the privilege of going to Japan when I was a young man and watched them prepare eels for sushi or whatever. It was pretty messed up in that they grab an eel from a barrel, they drive a nail through its head while it's slithering around, cut open its belly, pull all its innards out, and then prepare the eel. It's just like any other, like a fish is the same way. If you like, they said they go whale hunting. What do you think they do when they get whale? A whale is a giant intelligent mammal. That thing's not so pretty when it's dying, I'm sure. So yeah, I didn't know, but I agree that the eating aspect of it, I could understand that being.
I could get that. Yeah. And not just the Japanese, the Europeans are obviously bad. Blackthorn is more the definition of insanity. He keeps on having these temper tantrums and like, why would you ever do that? And screaming at people. And because of that, someone has to die. And then he gets upset that they die. And then he starts getting upset and moody.
You're talking about Old Gardner?
And then. Yeah, and then he gets more upset, and then they have to kill another person. And then he keeps doing it in this like circle of unending moodiness and death. And he just can't figure out, maybe I should just not freak out every time something bad happens and just learn from my mistakes. Yeah. It's like, what are you doing? And then I don't even need to mention religion and all the hypocrisies around that. That's clearly been covered and very, very obvious in this book how stupid a lot of this thing is. Things that around religion are. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, Europeans aren't any better.
The Spaniards and the Portuguese, like, oh, we're doing it for God, but they have conquistadors. Yeah, the Old Gardner's death, it hit me a little hard. It was one of the things I did remember from reading it was like the pheasant, him like letting the pheasant rot, and then old Gardner having a go to the great void. But I thought Toranaga handled it well.
I thought it was a really good explanation.
Yeah, it was like, who's going to decide to do it? It's not a democracy, but it is. The people can get together and decide, okay, what is best for the household? Like, it's disturbing the law of the community. The Old Gardner's like, I've been feeling a lot of pain. I'm not doing my job very well. I think I should be honored to take this pheasant down and bury it, and then we'll give my life for it. It's like, okay, cool. Everyone agrees? We're in. Done. I did like how Blackthorn afterwards had realize, okay, I'm at fault too. You can't just sit there and blame everyone else. Like I said, don't touch the pheasant.
Well, he still does it continuously, but yeah,
I agree.
He gets a dude that's hunting killed later on, and he's like, oops. But can I add an addendum? I would be all for this society if instead of doing that, we get a little opium or something going. I know opium's a little bigger out there. Get that going, a little ritual before, and then you cut my head off. Instead of cutting my guts open and suffering for a long time, we do a little something, take the pain away, and then, it's over.
Yeah, old gardeners should be like, give me 15 minutes with Kiku, and...
there we go. See, now you're speaking my language.
And then, put me out. I'd be happy. Speaking about Kiku, my next talk up is going out for tea. So tea houses are much different in 1600s Japan than they are like going out for high tea in England. It's kind of crazy to me that it took until the swinging 60s and a special guy named Austin Powers to start loosening up the morals of the Western world. Not in Japan, though. They've been sexually free since before the kami. I honestly loved, and this is at the beginning of part 2, the conversation when Mariko really had just met Blackthorn and they're in Osaka Castle, and she's asking like if he wants to be pillowed or whatever the case is, like they're pillowing, and he got all upset and no one understood why, and so the samurai there was like, oh, please excuse me, but maybe he's impotent, nay? And she's like, I don't think he's impotent or whatever, and they're like, oh, so sorry, Mariko-san, but maybe the Anjin wants a duck. Should I fetch him a duck? It was like, there was that other guy who liked to have sex with ducks, like maybe he likes ducks. I thought that was probably the funniest part of the book for me so far, because like they just couldn't possibly understand why this guy was so chaste when it came to pillowing. But back to the tea house, though, we learn about a lot of stuff when Blackthorn has his night with Kiku. Mariko as well is there, but we learn, about the importance of prolonging the moments of the clouds and the rain. How have you been practicing?
I had to stock up edging back in the day. You know what that was?
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah. Right.
Have you been practicing is the question.
I'm always practicing. I'm constantly learning. How about any pillowing apparatuses? The harigata or the konemi shinju, aka the pleasure pills?
I had the fan over my mouth and was blushing furiously reading that, so I couldn't even feel what was going on.
It was just a wild scene. I'm now like I'm getting obsessed with Japanese culture of the time, and
we're gonna watch this show, right?
1,000,000,000%. I'm so jazzed because I loved the 80s one, and if people are like itching to see it and haven't seen the 80s one, it's so good. Yeah, I just thought the tea house stuff was super funny, and like, I was saying I've been kind of diving into the culture, but I watched Blue-Eyed Samurai, which is on Netflix, or I started watching it, and it takes place in 1630, so it's like kind of like right after this thing finishes. And it's funny seeing some of the similarities between the stories where, there's guys selling his daughter off and he's like, oh, you have to learn the 12 and 20 positions, and like gives her like pictures of the 12. And he's like, don't worry so much about the 20. Like that's more for women of the willow world. I just enjoy all this, the sexual stuff. It's funny to me, not like sexually enjoyable, but I enjoy it either way. Did you have any other stock ups?
Yeah, last stock up, Second Amendment. Is this book secretly written by the NRA? Kid, is that what you wanted to get out of this? Is that what we were going for? I know it's 50 hours in, but secretly it's just the whole thing is about why guns are important to a society, and the only way to keep the populace down is to not give them guns. Mm-hmm. I was like, this is straight out of the handbook of the NRA. Is that what you're giving me, T-Man? What's going on here?
Yeah, it's a good point. Unfortunately, it just allows any old person to have a gun and kill a samurai, or anyone really. So that's the unfortunate part of it. So
yeah. Well, yeah. I was trying to be funny, but let's get dark. Jesus.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had my last one was keeping your own counsel as a stock up. People think, you gotta feel it out by getting other people, but not our boy, who we really haven't talked about, Yoshi Toranaga no Chikitada Minawara-sama, our absolute gangsta. Toranaga, he always keeps his real plan so close to the vest in a society where spies are known, like everyone has spies. I can understand not wanting to he doesn't even let Naga, like his own son, know what's going on. Or Hiramatsu. Hiramatsu is like, to your point, has asked to kill himself like 20 times. He's like, why are you doing this to yourself, Lord? Like, let me just slit my own belly now. I guess he doesn't really keep his playing it close to the vest. He keeps it close to the kimono. The thing is, he's such an interesting leader because he does listen to counselors, especially Mariko, which is interesting. You know, he puts a lot of stock into what she says, but he never tells them what he's actually doing and is constantly saying one thing, but probably planning another. I really liked when he had like all of his counselors together and then pulled Mariko to the side afterwards and was like, you know, what do you think's going on, whatever the case is. And she is probably the smartest out of all of them and like broke it down. I was like, I think you and Zataki have like either a side bargain or you're planning to bring him over. Like there's no way you're just going to submit. Like it's just not going to happen. Yet he's continued to toe that line. So I'm interested in what you think he's going to do because he's been saying, you know, I don't want the shogunate. I've never wanted it. I don't want more lands. I'm not interested in any of that. I'm also going to do Crimson Sky at some point, but then he's kind of like backing off Crimson Sky. What do you think about that?
You really set me up for my stock down,
okay,
which
good.
is kind of
Perfect.
right in line with that. You're not going to like this one probably, but stock down Star Wars Episode 8 because of this.
Which one's episode 8?
The Last Jedi. So one of the worst movies of all time. I mean, this stock is bankrupt. It's Enron. So, I mean, me selling it is really not, you're not doing much for that.
Terrible movie.
So that's the one where they're just on a ship the whole time. The main person, Vice Admiral Holdo, remember, she's doing all these things, but she's not telling anyone about anything.
Yeah.
And just like seemingly doing the dumbest things. She must want something bad to happen, or she must be a bad person. You know, you're just assuming all these things, but she's just not telling you anything. That's what Toranaga is kind of doing to all of his people, right? He's just like not telling them anything, and everyone's like, yeah, bro, what are you doing? You know, like, and they're all rightfully questioning him. So I like Toranaga and how strategic he is. And he's like, I know there's spies in here. I can't tell them everything. But at the same time, there's people that are about to like fucking cut your head off because you're doing such dumb stuff and they don't want to follow you anymore. You're just lucky that no one's done that yet. I'm sure he has something up his sleeve. I'm sure he knows what he's doing and he's smart, but he hasn't built up that trust enough. And he's not really confiding in any of his like top people what his actual plan is. So no one really knows if they should trust him or not because all their lives are on the line too. So I don't know. That's what I kind of feel like.
Yeah, well, spies are afoot, and I've read this before, but I don't remember like the specific details, so I'm not really giving anything away. But we also have to remember that Toranaga is a great actor. They've said that several times, that he loves to not only see plays, but like act in plays, because they keep saying, oh, Toranaga's weak, and he's just like submitting to Ishido. Like, why is he doing this?
Well, I figured that in the Star Wars thing, also, they try to throw a mutiny. They try to overthrow the person. That could happen to him. Or he could get assassinated by one of his own people. Like, that's not out of the realm of possibility. That happens all the time. This is pretty risky to act like this, you know?
Yeah, and it's interesting just in power itself and how to obtain power, because more often than not, you have to really risk it all. And in a culture like this where they risk it all on the daily, as you've already pointed out, like he's going to the max with that. Yabu could see that I'm weak, especially that time when he came off the boat when they brought Anjin back and he like gave Yabu his swords and then turned back and asked to view his regiments and then got on his boat. Like he could have just been killed right there. He strategically got out of that situation. So I think he's pulling together all the stuff that we've kind of talked about, especially when it comes to like Buddhism and karma, and saying, I'm going to go down this path. If it doesn't work out, that's karma, nay, but I'm going to go for it no matter what. I do agree that maybe, you know, he should let some people in on what his eventual real plan is, but he can't really trust Naga. He talks about everyone as a hawk, which I really like. You know, oh, is this person, you know, someone that you let them dive at? Is this someone you put them on your sleeve and feed them gently? You know, so he knows how to deal with people. It seems like he's kind of operating on a different plane than everyone else. I trust that Toranaga has a master plan and he's not just going to go in and go to the regents and submit and put his head on the plate.
I do too, but you know I'm all about let's get the team, let's get the boys involved. Yeah. Let's get everyone fucking rallied against, you know, I'm more for that. Like, if we're going to win, I'd rather win with everyone rather than win and just me take the credit. I liked him at first because he's kind of moving the chess pieces around the board. But at the same time, I want to bring the whole squad with me. I don't want to just be like, this is the guy, you know? And
we've seen glimpses of him as like a general, like when he's reviewing the company and whatnot and being like, oh, okay, this guy's a guy that's a leader. Like, you know, he's a leader. So right now we're really seeing him, like you said, move around the chess pieces and whatnot. But I think once we get to the point where he has to rally his banners, it's going to be like, oh, shit. This is why this guy has literally never lost a battle.
I also think once Omi, though, starts questioning you, that's when I'm like, oh. Because I feel like Omi seems to be pretty smart, pretty on it. And like once he's like, oh, this dude's an idiot, I was like, uh-oh. Like, you don't want that. You want Omi on your side.
Yeah. Well, to me, I totally agree with you on the Omi stuff. But to me, it's like when Omi starts questioning it, that's when it's like, wow, you've actually tricked everyone. Like Toranaga, you've actually thrown everyone off your scent.
Spoilers.
No, I don't. Like I said, I don't know. But he actually like has thrown everyone off of his scent of what he's actually going to do. That Omi can't even see it. My first talk down, speaking about Yabu, is handshake deals. People say, oh, let's shake on it, this, that, and the other thing. No, let's piss on it. So Yabu and Toranaga, they have a very interesting conversation in Osaka, and they're at like the top of a tower. And Yabu thinks he's going there for one thing, but Toranaga is actually like being super nice to him, and he's confused. There's tons at stake here. It's a heavy scene. Hiramatsu's there with them, and he's like, what are you doing? And he pretty much...
Hiramatsu just only says,
yeah, exactly.
Let me kill myself. Yeah. Let me do it.
And he pretty much tells Yabu, like, yeah, I'm going to give you this musket regiment. You're going to train them. You're going to use the Anjutsu. And Yabu's like, all right, great. And they stand on top of this giant castle and piss hundreds of feet down onto it. Like either of them could have pushed the other one off kind of thing, but it's a great way to sign a deal. Yeah, and I stood for it. I stood for it. So that's my stock down handshake deals. We're going to start peeing on them from now on.
You can still shake on it.
Oh, hey.
All right. Okay. Anyways.
What else you got?
You kind of alluded to it earlier, but stock down doctors / medical studies. I haven't been to a physical in like 15 years, so I don't really know if things have changed. Every physical I went to back in the day when I was growing up, the standard checkups, measure height, weight, blood work, any of that stuff. If you're doing any drugs, how much your alcohol intake, what are you eating, all that stuff. But know what they don't talk about, D-Man, is your pillowing habits. And specifically being like, you need more.
Yeah.
Get the ginger ale out of here, get the apple a day, keeps the doctor away. Get the pillowing into the school books, into the medical studies. The Japanese know what they're doing. Like that is really what keeps your spirit alive. That's what you need for good health. Preach it. And that's why I was unhealthy for like 30 years of my life. So
honestly, every time they talk about this stuff, like when's the last time he's pillowed, or like Mariko's like, Anjin-san, you should take someone else besides me. Like you're gonna need some time to like have some pillowing. It just reminds me of Matthew McConaughey's character in Wolf of Wall Street when he's like, hey, how many times do you jack off a day? He's like, what? It's like, I jack off like 3 times a day. It gets rid of the things or whatever it says. Like, that's all I see is like Japanese Matthew McConaughey being like, oh, that's bad. You're getting bad kami around you. Like you gotta fix your wa, man.
Well, Blackthorn's the perfect example, too, because he's in like this moody, fly off the hinges guy. And once he starts pillowing, he's like all of a sudden in a good mood. He's feeling good about himself. It's like, yeah, right there. That's perfect. That's the case study.
Yeah, he almost kissed Kiku on the porch. He was so excited, which would have been not good at all.
No, you can't be doing that. Come on.
Can't be doing that. My next talk down are, I know I talked about Yabu before, but here we go. Fences in general. Yabu is living on the fence. He shouldn't have a fence. He shouldn't even understand what a fence is. He can't commit in sincerity to Toranaga or Ishido. And his wife seems like she gives decent counsel. For some reason, she's not doing it. And he's like deciding in the moment one thing and then switching over the next. I just feel like it's all going to come back on him because Toranaga...
He's a politician. Yeah, he just blows with the wind.
He's a Western politician in an Eastern world. And in this world, it's not going to work. So I feel like bad things are coming for Yabu.
That's pretty evident. And I mean, once you set up a character that loves torture, there's really no redeeming arc for those people, those kind of characters usually.
Yeah, so. When like Goku or Gyoku or someone is like remembering his dad and he's like, oh yes, he used to also, it was Gyoku.
He also
loved to boil barbarians and boil his enemies. It's like, oh wow, these people are fucked in the head. What else do you have for stock down?
Saying hand up or so sorry. Stock down.
Stock down?
Yeah, I feel like everyone's tripping over themselves to take blame for things. Things will happen that's like the guard on the other county, let someone buy them. And that's my fault. It's like, wait, what? Like, they just keep on saying like, oh, my bad. You should kill me for the incompetence of like some dude 3 miles away who didn't cook the rice the right way. It's like, what? All it's doing is making actual apologies not worth anything. Because if you just say sorry for everything, then sorry doesn't mean anything. So it really just defeats the whole purpose of saying hand up. When I say hand up, I mean hand up. I know I messed up. If I just said hand up every second, then what does it matter? There's no such thing as hand up. Everything's hand up.
Yeah, in a culture where saving face is important, I do like when the conversations, especially like arguments, because you can't have arguments, of course not, like in a formal setting. So it's always like, oh, so sorry. Like, this is what it means. Like, so sorry. Even Gyoku and Mariko, or Gyoku and Toranaga negotiating about contracts or stuff, like in these negotiation settings, it's like, so sorry, and then they humble themselves, and then you have to say so sorry and humble yourself.
Well, you can beat the shit out of your wife, but as long as it doesn't disturb other people around it. I mean, you can't do that. That's the apology you have to say. Like, if it's too loud.
Yeah, exactly. I ruined the town's what? Like, oh, sorry, I beat my wife under your household. Like, that's the apology.
Yeah.
Crazy. That scene with Buntaru and Anjin-san like having a sake off straight out of Beer Fest, and then
that's gonna be really good.
That's gonna be good on the show. Yeah, and also like how often does Buntaru practice archery? Because he shot 4 arrows through one slit in the tabi or whatever, and they all hit the post where he hadn't seen it in an hour, and he was drunk. Like, I don't know. Good for him. Speaking about Buntaru, my next stuck down and last one is couples therapy. So people do this in the Western world, but you don't need it. You don't need it. Just have a cha no yu. Have a tea ceremony. You settle your differences. You make a beautiful flower arrangement. You clean the place up. You pour her tea. She says that, oh, no, you. You say, no, you. She says, no, you. And then you say, no, you. And then she drinks it and she says, wow, it's perfect temperature. This is beautiful, all that stuff. And then you both agree that at the end of this, you'll kill each other, and you're fine.
It's a cult. It's basically a cult. You got to drink the tea, the punch or whatever. Yeah. That's the way you want to do it.
Yeah, in autumn, we'll kill each other, or I'll kill you, and then I'll kill myself. It's like, oh,
I'm so happy right now. I could die is an actual saying there. That's what basically what happened.
Yeah. You didn't have any loves you wanted to discuss, right?
Yeah, I pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, I talked about mine in terms of the scope and whatnot, and I'm just going to run through it quickly because, we've kind of talked about some like general ideas and whatnot, but these 2 books, book 2 and book 3, are 2 individual books on their own. Like, we didn't even talk about so much stuff that could be in here. The whole Osaka stuff we really haven't talked about, like Ishido's trap, the Anjin-san's time in jail where he meets Father Domingo, and by the way, the Black Ship, which is supposedly going to cast off with 100,000 ounces of gold this year. That's $200 million in today's market, just so people know like how much the Black Ship is worth. We got the ninjas or whatever coming for Anjin-san, and like those ninjas deserve a book themselves. They're bred from childhood to have for one kill, and then afterwards they can get nirvana or something like that. Toranaga's escape from the castle where the Anjin saves him again, and as well as the harbor. And then in the sticky situation with Yabu, which we kind of talked about, Blackthorn being reborn. Like, there's so much stuff. Blackthorn pillows Mariko. We haven't even really talked about them pillowing. And then at the end, they're on this trip and they're just pillowing left and right. It's crazy. We talked about the dinner party, but yeah, we kind of end it with like Toranaga capitulating to Lord Zataki, so his half brother. So we'll see. So I just think the scope in itself, I love. There's so much going on that like we can't even talk about in this pod, where it's usually we're trying to kind of find things sometimes. And then my other love, and this is maybe my number one love for this book, are the sexual metaphors and insults. Whenever they come up, I just laugh. Toranaga talking about the Taiko. Him a stoat who sprayed more joyful juice into more heavenly chambers than 10 ordinary men. It's so good. Or Gyoku talking about Mariko when she's haggling her. She goes, may she reborn as a back passage whore of the 15th rank. And then none of the men or youths could unwind the knot of her golden pavilion, her jade gate, with their turtle heads, their steaming shafts. I fucking love it all. It's so good. They got so many awesome euphemisms. It's great. Do you have like a favorite scene or favorite character at this point?
The captain of the other ship.
Rodrigo.
Yeah, that guy's the man. Yeah, love him. You know who my favorite characters are before I know they are. Yeah. Yeah, just because he's just a complete wild card and he's playing both sides, and I just liked him.
He saves Blackthorn when they're trying to escape. He throws him off the ship. He has this whole plan to save him, but then towards the end of book 3, he goes and like tries to kill him potentially. He shows up at his house and tries to kill him. It's interesting his passions and like his feelings, and obviously he wants his take of the black ship. Like I think he gets like 10%, so 10% at 200 million, he gets $20 million. Like he's going to be one of the wealthiest men, but he's still at the heart of it is a pilot. Pilots kind of stick out for each other. It's going to be an interesting relationship going forward. I'm interested to see what happens, especially once you saw Blackthorn is like now becoming Japanese. He's like, holy shit, like this isn't my friend. This is someone else now. In terms of my favorite character, I loved the scene, the Buntaru scene that we talked about. I thought that was great. I loved Anjin in the tea house. That was quite enjoyable. I mean, Toranaga has to be my favorite just because he's enigmatic and also
not yet. I feel like we're getting set up for him to be
but that's what
like
I'm saying.
The mastermind. But again, right now I was upset with his not bringing the team along vibe.
I just think there's been so many things like when Blackthorn's in jail, like he puts Blackthorn in jail for two reasons. One, it makes it so Ishido thinks, oh, he doesn't care about this guy. Like he's throwing him in jail. So he's not important because Toranaga doesn't think he's important. But Toranaga also knows that Father Domingo is in that jail, but he hasn't been able to get to him. Like he hasn't been able to get someone to talk to him. He knows this guy knows something who's in that jail. So he's like, I'll throw Blackthorn in there. And then the whole thing with Ishido taking Blackthorn out of the jail, but then Toranaga figuring out a way to get his hands on him. It's like it's a masterclass in strategy for this particular culture. So I just think that everything he does, you kind of have to look at like three different ways. He's just so interesting. So that's why I like him. Yeah. Because like, even with Kiku's contract, it's like, oh, is he going to do it for Omi? Is he going to do it for Blackthorn? He's like, nah, she's mine. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And I like that he's shrewd. You know, he's leaving the inn and he's like, what's the bill? Like, let me look at the bill. Yeah. Like, no, samurai shouldn't care about money. He's like, let me see the bill. Considering we're going to have a brief hiatus while you're on your walkabout, is there anything that you'd like for our parting words?
Finish up this book. We'll be doing that next after this episode. And then we also got Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut coming up. And we got a couple more books coming down the road, couple movies, couple shows maybe. Stick with the Buddy Book Club. Sorry for the break here coming up. Or I guess this episode's not going to be released until after the break. Yeah, so but sorry for the break, but
it's funny because we're going to finish this book, which is like 45 hours or something, and it kind of reminds me of a long road trip where when I go drive to Michigan, it's like 16 hours, and then Slaughterhouse 5 is 5 hours, and I'm like, oh, that's actually just like driving to the grocery store, like compared to this, cross country road trip.
Excited for what we got coming up here, and should be good.
All right, love that. Well, you enjoy your trip, and in the interim, we'll hold down the fort. But Keith, that's Shōgun Part 2 and Part 3. We'll come back with our final installment in a couple weeks. All right.
Sounds good.
Bye now.
Bye now.